continue with the next one, which is called the Bulge deformer. The Bulge deformer has been designed to make your layer bulge while you resize it, rescale it. So it's a little bit more different than the previous ones, since all these ones were working in conjunction with keyframed position, but this one has to be some keyframes on its transform scale property, as it's mentioned in this cool summary. Just keep in mind that you can always retrieve this summary for each button, maintaining the Alt key on the keyboard before clicking on the buttons. So to demonstrate the Bulge deformer, I will create again a new composition, a new solid like this, and I will keyframe, as I've said, the scale property. So I will begin to scale it from 100 to let's say 200. Let some room to the animation and resize it to make it smaller, let's say 50, and let's say what you have now as an animation preview. Okay, really boring. But now if you have your layer keyframed on its scale, you can select it and click on the, so I will remake the text display like before. So select your layer and simply click on the Bulge deformer, and as usual you have a newly created layer that is called the same way than your previous layer, plus the spring constraint control in the name. Let's do a run preview. Okay, pretty cool. As you can see, now my layer is behaving like a kind of pillow shape. So you can, if the scale is increasing, it will make the corners rescale faster than the center, ending up with this cool pillow shape. And conversely, if you now resize it to be more smaller, the corner still are animated faster than the center of the layer, which ends up with this cool bulge shape. So it's pretty simple to understand, pretty cool. If you want to customize it a bit, you can still go to the spring constraint control. As you can see, as usual, you have some useful sliders for each axis. Here you have the bulge X max and the bulge Y max. Both are set to 100 by default, but you can, if you want, play with each axis to make the effects behave in a different way. For one axis, if you want to. So if I try this, I have this for now. So it reminds you a bit of the squash and stretch, which could be nice if you want to squash and stretch your layer based on your scale and not on your position. So it's pretty cool. You can exaggerate your motion, increasing this value, for instance, or have some more subtle effects decreasing this value. So keep in mind that the scale here has to be some rather fast motion to make all these deformers behave correctly. If you have some too slow motion like this, the effect will be less noticeable. So as you can see, it still works, but it's less interesting. So don't hesitate to make some really fast moves to have a really visible effect. So that's it for the Bulge deformer. As you can see, since you have already understood all the other ones, it's way faster to explain the other following ones now. So, oh yes, I've almost forgotten a thing. You can still, you have this motion from now, you can still add some different deformers on the same layer, which is really nice, since for now I've keyframed the scale, but what if I wanted now to keyframe the position here, to place my layer here, for instance, and I want to have this nice pillow effect due to the Bulge deformer, which is already applied, but I want also that my layer deforms as a bow, as an arc, when it's moving toward the right side. So it's really cool, since each of these deformers are compatible and could be additioned to a same layer. So for instance, if I select my initial layer, the one that has its properties keyframed, you can just select it and click on the bend deformer, for instance, and now what has happened is that on the royal blue solid 3 here, I have the bulge effect on X, Y, due to the Bulge deformer, plus the bend X and the bend Y effects. All are on the same layer. These are some basic warp, distort effects from native After Effects effects, and I can still play with the controls in the spring constraint control, and as you can see, it hasn't created a new spring control for the newly created deformer. Since it was the same layer that has been selected, sorry, you can still find the controls in the same layer. So I have now the Bulge effects for X and Y here, plus the bend X max and the bend Y max to make it automatically bend while moving horizontally, for instance. So I want to exaggerate a bit the motion from this. So now I have a layer that's bulge and that bend while moving, which is pretty cool. So keep that in mind. You can always add several deformers on same layers, which is pretty cool. Okay, that's it for the Bulge deformer. Let's demonstrate what the twist deformer, and as you can see in the icon, it will pretty logical and simple to understand. It's a rotation arrow that you see in the icon. So as you may guess, it will depend not of the position, not of the scale, but of the rotation of your layer. So to do that, I will create a new composition, a new solid. Like before, I will click on the rotation, click on the stopwatch to animate its rotation property and make it, for instance, make a full turn on 360 degrees, like this, or in the other side, for instance. So something like this. Okay, it's a bit fast. Okay, still too fast. Okay, so let's do something a little bit more subtle. Okay, something like this. So now all I gotta do is to create the twist deformer just by selecting my layer that has its rotation keyframed, and to click simply on the twist deformer. As you can see, like before, it has created the same name plus the spring constraint control new layer, and you can still play with the new created twist max slider. Sorry, it's not a slider, it's an angle control that you'll be able to tweak after. So just before that, play the preview to understand what has been created. So now, as you can see, while my layer is rotating, you have a nice secondary motion on the corners in a wavy shape, which is pretty cool if you want to exaggerate in a cartoonish way, in a stylish way, your rotations on various designs. If you want to exaggerate this thing, you have two possibilities. You first are able to go to the spring constraint control and to play with the twist max angle property. So as you can see, by default it's only one turn, but you can exaggerate the effect of this twisting effect by increasing this value. And as you can see, the shape now is much more noticeable. Okay, the second, so I have undown this, so I have the same thing that before. The second manner to, the second way to customize a bit the look of this is to play with the one option that I've shown you at the very beginning of the tutorial, and which is only useful for this case. So it's directly on the layer itself. You have the pseudo effect called Springy Deformers Control. I've told you that you can't remove this pseudo effect. If you do this, you'll have some expressions problem, so do not delete it. But you have a little guy here, source layer size, that you can deploy, and you have now some two properties that you can tweak to force After Effects to change the bounding box of your graphics. So my solid is exactly 150 pixels in width and on height, so it has automatically make this source size X and source size Y the correct dimensions. But if you want to exaggerate a bit the twisting effect, you can always cheat a bit with the source size. So you can play with it, for instance, and as you can see, it's really subtle. But if you have some too big or too small values, the twisting effect almost disappears. But to make it more visible, you can play with one of these options, okay, to have the most pronunciated shape like this. So after that, if you want to have something more visible, don't forget that you can still play with this, for instance. So if I go here and make it 90-degree turn only, I have now this kind of motion. I can easy ease in for a better appearing motion, and now I have something really nice. So it's pretty cool too. If you ask me, it can be useful in a lot of situations. I will now show you a concrete case where it could be useful. So I've just prepared a basic scene, which is just a quick drawing of the back of a head and a ponytail, which is pre-comped since it's a shape layer, and shape layers don't work, with the deformers. So you have to pre-comp them. I've told you before that you had to make your pre-comp fit the design that you have created, but here I want to make my ponytail twist around this point, which is the center of my composition. So I want a nice swinging motion here, so I will leave some room here and let the pre-comp size as it is here. So my scene is basically this ponytail and this head that I've already keyframed on its rotation with its anchor point just here, which is the neck base. Okay, and if I show you which keyframes I've created, it's just 4 keyframes with an easy ease like this. So if I make a quick preview of this, it's just a simple motion like this. First thing that I will do by now is to link the ponytail to the keyframe head. So now the ponytail will follow, and to make it behave like natural ponytail, I want to make it remain vertical, since the gravity affects the ponytail. So to do that, it's really easy. I just have to add a really simple expression on its rotation. So I will alt-click on the stopwatch next to the rotation of the ponytail. I will add a minus sign and will search with the equip for the rotation of the head. So now if I make a RAM preview, you have this motion, and as you can see, the ponytail will always remain vertical, which is already pretty cool, but it's not that interesting for the moment. So now let's take your ponytail. I remind you that the ponytail hasn't any keyframes on its rotation, but it's not important. You'll understand easily why after. So I click on my ponytail, I click on my twist deformer, and now all I have to do is to go to the spring constraint control, and I don't want to inherit the motion from my ponytail, but from my keyframe head, since as its name said, this is my head which has the keyframes on its rotation. So just by selecting this layer instead of this one, see what happens now. Okay, pretty cool. How cool is that? So there is a wide variety of situations where you could use the twist deformer to behave like this. So to exaggerate the motion from the twist, I can always go to the ponytail, resize the source layer size a bit, just by I will go in an extreme here and play with the X value. Okay, doesn't make many difference, so I will leave it like it is, and I will whether go to the spring constraint control and play with the twist max angle. I will exaggerate the motion here. I will return to the source size on X, and just by playing with this option, as you can see, I redrive my twisting shape here. Okay, which is pretty cool, pretty nice. I can play with both size on X and on Y. I remind you that the composition is way bigger than my graphics, so I have to play with the source size and size Y. So I will play with this option like this. I will try to estimate the size of this graphic. Okay, something like this, and this curious shape is only due to the fact that I've created a too much higher big value here. So sorry for my hesitation. So my angle is way too big, so I will decrease it. I will leave it at 2 wall terms, and now if I press play, you have a really nice swinging motion. It's really cool. You can still use the Spring physical attributes to play with the elasticity, damping, and time offset. I will, for instance, make a less elastic animation, less damping, okay, or even more elasticity. So if I do this, it will behave more like a spring. So it's a little bit too nervous, so I prefer some more subtle values. So I will leave it as it is, and as you can see, it's working pretty fine. So that's it for the twist deformer. So let's continue with the liquid deformer. Oh, I love this one. You'll love it too, I promise. So to demonstrate it, I will create, as always, a new composition in the HD ready format like this. I will simply create a new solid, which will be bigger in width than the 8, something like this. I will leave it in blue. I have now this solid like this. So as its name lets you guess, it's a liquid deformer that will make your selected layer act like some liquid. So this is why I leave it in blue, and I will rename it, just for your comprehension, I will rename it liquid, or it could be water or whatever you want. So it's almost it. I can just select my layer and click on liquid deformer. It will work. As you can see, the anchor point has been moved here on the top of your layer. It's totally normal. And if you play with your position, take a look closely at the icon. It's the position icon here. So I will play with the position and try to move it like this. And as you can see, your layer now acts like liquid, like this. So you could find that it's a little bit weird without any container. So this is why I never use liquid deformer with only one layer selected. Let me undo this and show you what you can do with 2 layers selected. So keep in mind that the water still have to, the water or the liquid still have to be selected first. So I will leave it as it is, and I will create now another layer. And for that, I will copy a bunch of shapes that I've created inside Illustrator. You can draw them directly in After Effects, but I'm way more comfortable with Adobe Illustrator, so I will first take this shape, copy it, return to the After Effects, create a new solid, add the comp size, and make it, for instance, the dark gray. Okay, and paste my shape. So as you can see, I've created a mask that has the exact same shape that my Illustrator file. So this is cool. I want my liquid that is underneath to be right there and my container to be around there. What I want is my liquid to appear only in my container like this. So take closely a look at what I'm about to create now. So the dark gray, I will rename it a bottle, or container, or whatever you want. Okay, I will first click on the water. This is the layer that I want to be deformed depending on its motion. And then I will click on the container in a second click, and now I will click on liquid deformer. And now take a look at what happens. If I move my water layer, don't confuse about this. This is the liquid that you have to play with its position. This is the one that you have to keyframe, not the containers. So as you can see, the scripts has copied the container in both layers. The first one is on top of the water and act like a track mat, and the second one is another one from on top of this, and both are linked together. So if I move the container, the track mat will follow. So I will leave it as it is, but now if I animate the water with its position like this, take a look at what happens. Okay, let me create a bunch of really basic keyframes on the position, and let's finish it with a rotation on a keyframe on the rotation. And as you can see, it will work really like a liquid even if you rotate your liquid, which is pretty nice too. So you don't even need to easy ease that. Just like this, I will make a run preview, and as you can see, it's almost magical. It's really cool and almost never seen effect in After Effects. So I'm really glad to present you this liquid deformer. It's a game-changing effect that could really add some more life in your simulations. So it's pretty cool. This is really interesting. You can use the shape that you want. It could have been another shape. I will to show you. I will just undo what I've created. Just keep in mind that the controls are still on the water or on the liquid, so the same named layer here, with the spring constraint control as always, and you have a bunch of controls that let you customize a bit the effect. You can, for instance, have a liquid rotation maximum like this one, so you can make it twist more or less. For instance, the rotation here is this one, so you can still make it rotate more or less too. You can play also with the the width and the amplitude of the liquid waves. So the liquid waves amp max will play with the minimum and maximum value of the waves. So the bigger the value is, the bigger will be the waves. So hope it makes sense. It's much more visible here, for instance. As you can see, this parameter affect all the wavy animations, and the liquid wave's size is basically by default on 50 on the slider, so it's rather big, but you could want to have some much smaller waves. So to do this, just decrease the value of the size, and as you can see, while decreasing this value, you have now a much smaller drawing on your wave. So it could be useful in some cases to touch to these two attributes. So you can push the amplitude and decrease the value to have such a kind of effect, or you can conversely do the exact opposite and make it really subtle with a big wave size. So you have a totally different behavior on your liquid. Okay, this is much more visible here on the y-axis. So the higher the value is, the larger will be your wave, but the smaller it is, the smaller will be your waves. So keep that in mind. By default, I think it's on 50 on the wave size max, and 100 or 200. I don't really remind how many I have set it up by default, but yep, it's still really cool. And you can, if you want to, make some cool animations of your container that fuel with your liquid by just playing with the liquid level. And if you do so just by like this, you can fill up your container really easily with this simple slider. So by default, it will be on 0, which means that it keeps the original position you had chosen for the water layer. So I will redo it from scratch in a new composition. I will recreate the solid with width higher than the height, like before. I will make it green, for instance, for kind of a radioactive liquid, for instance. I will rename it liquid. Okay, and I will now create a new solid, which will be my container. Add the comp size in gray, for instance, and I will try a new shape, for instance. I will first select this shape, which is the interior of a barrel. So I will click on this, copy it from Illustrator and paste it on my container. And now I can place my liquid where I want it to be on the level I want, so maybe like this. I remind you that you have to select the liquid first and then your container. And there is a cool option, so a fun option to play with that I haven't shown you yet with the liquid. is when you hold down the Shift key before clicking the button. So I will do it right now. I will click on the Shift key, and now I will click on the liquid and see what happens. Okay, cool. What happened here? Well, as you can see, there is a little effect that mimics the bubbles of the liquid. It's really fun. It could be used for a wide bunch of effects, and you can retrieve your bubble effect, which is just a native effect from After Effects, on your liquid layer. Since you have maintained Shift, it has created a bubble generation here and a bubbles composite effect just here. Okay, it's pretty cool. So you can play with the options to add more bubbles if you want to. You can play with the composite on original to have some other variation on the appearance of your bubbles for instance. So I will leave it on soft light or overlay, for instance, yeah, that's it. You will all just have to play with the position of the liquid. But before that, since I have designed in After Effects, in Illustrator, sorry, the exterior of my barrel, I can now click on this exterior shape, which is a closed shape, copy it, and replace on the container, which is below the container and the liquid. I can paste it at the place of the mask one. So if I do this, now I have a container that you can place whatever you want, okay? And you can now animate your liquid like before. So it's really cool. The bubble effect is pretty fun to play with, and you can still play with the rotation of the liquid like this. And as you can see, since there were some bubbles into it, you have a nice deformation of the bubbles depending on the motion of the liquid, which is really cool. Feel free to apply the bubble effect with the Shift key, but you can always delete these effects and replace them by your own effects. It could be some trap code particular, for instance, or any other software or plugins that generate some kind of bubbles motions. Just keep in mind that you'll have to place these bubbles effects on top of your effects before the liquid grow bounce, just like I've done with the bubbles generation and bubbles composite right here. So I will undo this last time. So just undo. Let's redo it a last time. Okay, we'll start the preview. I will change the color of the liquid. Let me check what. Okay, I will make a glass of red wine, for instance. So I will make it red, a deep red, like this. Okay, and I will rename it wine, for instance. Okay, so now I will create another solid at the comp size, leave it in a light gray color. Okay, I will rename it glass like this, and I will copy the first shape, which is a closed shape and which will be the container of my liquid. So I will click on this, copy it, paste it, and now I will move the glass wherever I want my wine to appear in my glass. Keep in mind that the size of the solid is important. You have, since your solid will be rotating like this, you have to ensure that you have enough room on the size, on the sides, of your layer. This is why I've created a width on this solid which is higher than the height. Keep that in mind when you make your design. So now that I have my wine, I can click secondary on my glass, and I will click on my liquid deformer without clicking on the shift key, and it will create for me the setup. So I can now go to the glass here, find the mask here, and I can now click on this shape, which is the exterior shape of my wine glass. So I will copy it. This is a closed shape as well, so it will work. I will select my mask one and replace it by pasting it like this. You'll probably have to reposition a bit manually this mask, but it still works like this. Okay, so now all you have to do is to animate, as always, your wine layer. You can play with the rotation. For instance, you can do something like this. Okay, so I will animate these two properties. I will make this and this. Okay, and this is pretty cool. So as you can see, it works pretty well. So this is for me a really cool feature and a really neat addition to After Effects that I've never seen before in such a 2D animation program. So hope you like it. Just before continuing and finishing with the custom effect, which is for me the by far the most advanced tool of this toolset. Keep in mind that you aren't bound to have some solid color layer like the wine here. You can always search on the web for, let's say, some bubbling liquid footage of a beer or champagne or soda, whatever you want. And since it's all based on pixels, you will be able to make it act like some real liquid with the same techniques. So it's really, really powerful. So we have almost finished this long video tutorial. So sorry for the long duration, but hey, this is an advanced toolset, so I had to show you all the possibilities. So last but not least, it's the last deformer you'll find in the list, and it's called the custom deformer, the custom effect deformer. So if I out-click on it, it will open up some information here. So the custom deformer, as its name says, let you create your own SpringyFX, which is really, really, really cool. It's by far the most useful and the most advanced feature that will opens up a wide variety of possibilities that will never have been possible before. So let me show you how it works. So let's create a new composition. HD ready, perfect. 5-second duration. Let's create a background color white, as always. Let's create new solid, 200 by 200. Let's change its color orange for instance, and click on OK. So now I will apply a rather unknown and unused effect from After Effects, which is called CC Smear. It's in the Effects panel of After Effects here, and you can find it in the Distort menu. It's called CC Smear. So if you click on it, you'll end up with this little guy with this bulge effect, which is, if you ask me, really much more interesting than you could guess at the first time. So for instance, I use it usually to create some nice antennas or organic motion on a character, or to make some muscles bulging, depending on some rigging motion. So let's explain it a bit later after that. So I just have created a CC Smear effect, and I will place this guy here, which is the equivalent to the 2 property, and let's increase a bit the radius, just like this, for instance. Okay, it's perfect for me. So now, with the custom effect, I want to make a custom springy effect, and I want, when I move this layer from this position to this position, I want this bulge shape to make something like this. So bulge here, when it will be here, I want it to be like this, and to make something as if you had kind of ball in a third body box, if you prefer, something that makes a motion like this, bing, 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 bing. Okay, so to do it, all you have to do is to select the property that you want to make springy, dependent of your motion. So in my case, this will be a motion from left to right, so it's just a motion on the X position. It's really important to keep in mind in my case, so we'll have to specify to the custom effect that I want to use the position on the X-axis only. So this is what I want here, and this is this property, the reach here, that I want to animate in a springy motion way. Okay, so I will right click on the reach property. I can't use my custom effect directly in the effects panel. I have to reveal the property in the timeline. So to do this, I want to take the reach, right click, and make reveal in timeline. So now I have the property, which is right here. So keep in mind what I'm trying to do for now. I want to make the reach dependent in a springy way of the position on the X-axis of this layer itself. So hope it's clear enough. I will click on the reach property, it is selected, and you will then click on the custom effect. Now you are prompted to enter a pair of letters in uppercase to specify on which property you want to inherit your motion from. So in my case, I've told you that I wanted a horizontal motion from left to right, so I will choose, of course, the PX position. By default, it's fortunately for me always on it's already for me on PX, so I will leave it as it is. But if you want to make something dependent on the scale on Y-axis, for instance, you will have to type the scale Y, so S and Y. if you want to make your custom effect, depend on the rotation, you'll have to type the R. Okay, so for me it's perfect, left to right, so PX. I will click on OK. And now, if I go to the newly created layer, which is as always with the same name at the beginning, and then with the Spring constraint control in the name at the end, I will click on it, and now, as you can see, there is a newly pseudo effect that has been called CC Smear Reach Max. It's really cool since, as you can see, the reach property that I had chosen before is the reach property and belongs to the CC Smear effect. So it automatically has renamed my pseudo effect controls CC Smear Reach and the max to help you use the maximum value you want. By default, the custom property value max, if you don't click on any shortcut, will take the value that you had here by default. So since I had the 100 value before clicking on this button, it has set this custom property value max to 100 also. So let's try to animate my orange solid from now. I will animate it, of course, on the position and mainly on the x-axis, since this is the one that I've chosen. So I will create a keyframe here and another one here, and let's do a run preview of this. Okay, as you can see the effect right here. Pretty nice. So I will exaggerate a bit the motion of the arc form to be much more visible. So I will go back to the layer, CC Sphere effects, and I will increase the radius. And now, if you make a run preview, you can see what happens. It's a little bit subtle, but if I go to the Spring constraint control, and if I increase this value here, which was on 100 by default, let's see what happens. Okay, pretty cool. So what I would want to do is to make it not deformed at the beginning of my motion. So the cool thing with the custom effect is that if you go to your CC Smear Reach effect, you can still play with the value itself. So by default, you had 100 and your SpringyFX override the 100 value and add it to the value you have here. So if you do not want the effect to be visible at the beginning like this, you just have to reset your reach value to 0. And now, as you can see, you can still play like this. You can even keyframe it, but now I don't want my smear effect to be visible at the beginning of the motion. So I want to be like this since each time my layer is fixed. So I have re-zero it, and now I can remake a quick run preview. And what is cool now is that you have your layer deformed when your layer is moving on the x-axis. So it's really, really cool since you can add some specific effects when it moves on the x-axis. You can add a second one, for instance, when it moves on its y-axis, for instance. So if I do something like this, okay, as you can see, since my custom effect has been created only on the x-axis, it won't deform my smear effect when the layer is moving on the y-axis. But I could choose, for instance, another effect. So I could add an effect called, let's say, what could I add? Let's add, for instance, a warp, okay, and in arch, for instance, which is pretty cool, or this one, let's say this one, okay, and the bend, which is here, will happen with the bend property here. So I will right click on it, with it in timeline, and I want it to springy bend depending on the Y position. So to make this, I will simply select the bend property. It is selected, so I can now create on the custom effect. I want now to be dependent of the Y position, so I will change the X by Y in uppercase. I will click on OK, and now, since this is the same layer than before, it hasn't created any new spring constraint control. It's all in the same spring control, which is convenient if you have complex rigs. So I will create on the spring constraint control and see the newly created pseudo effect called warp, which is my name effect, my effect's name, sorry, and bend, which is a property selected, max. So now, as you can see, it was on 40 by default, and now the property maximum is set to 40 as well. So to exaggerate the effect, I will push this value way much higher like this, and I will reset the bend at 0 at the beginning. So like this, each time my solid doesn't move, it will remain perfectly square. So now, if I do a RAM preview, I have something like this. And as you can see, I have two totally different effects for both X and Y axis. So the shell lower is here isn't well chosen. It's rather weird with this animation. So I can, just to make you see, I can choose a rise, for instance, which is basically what I use for the shear effect, or I can use the arch, for instance, and it's a little bit too much, so I will make something more subtle like this. Okay, and now I have what I wanted. So it's a totally custom effect, which is pretty cool because you wouldn't have exactly the same motion with any of these existing buttons. And what is cool is that it's totally dependent of the axis that you have chosen. So you have a really great control over your control, your custom controls. So let's see the other interesting options that you have here. To do it, I will just undo my effects. Okay, undo. I just don't want my new warp and my Y motion here. Okay, this is what I had just before, which is great for me. So let's say you have this motion, which is pretty cool when it goes from left to right. Imagine now that you want to have the same motion at the end, but from right to left. So I will copy my keyframes, Command C, Command V, right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse keyframes, and I have now the exact same motion but in the opposite ways, in the opposite side. So it works really well in this direction, because I have the impression that the corners are more soft and the center of mass is more weighted, which is basically what happens with soft bodies. So it works nice here, but let's see what happens when it goes in the opposite direction, like this. Well, by default, it works already in the correct way, like this. But if you want, for a specific purpose, to do not follow the direction, you could want, for instance, to have this in this direction, and when it goes from right to left, to have this bending effect here, like you had here. So if you do want to do so, you just have to go to the spring constraint control, go to your pseudo effect with the name of your effects, and click on absolute. So if you click on it and you see what happens now, as you can see, before the shape was like this at the beginning and like this at the ending, and now both directions work the same way. So it can be cool for some reasons. Trust me, I have several cases where it has been useful. So in my case, it's a little bit strange to have this in this direction. So you can invert this if you want to. So if I click invert, now it goes in the correct direction in this way, and now if I go back like this, it will be absolute. So it will always maintain with absolute mode the same deformation of the same way. So keep that in mind. You can play with the invert on absolute or absolute options. It could be cool in some situations. Maybe you could not find this that useful with such a basic example, but don't forget that you can inherit the motion from another layer than the original one. So this is where this custom effect is really powerful and really a great tool for rigging. Let me see what I mean by that. So let's create a composition. Let's do, let's say, a solid. I will create a round mask like this. I will create a new solid like this, okay, which will be blue. Okay, imagine that you have a base that will move from left to right. Okay, let's say it's an industrial object that's moving onto a constrained line like this, a mechanic line, and that you have a ball that is attached to the base. Let's see better what I mean by creating this kind of a rope like this. Okay, so I will rename this the rope. This is my ball, and this is my master layer that will be keyframed. So the ball will depend on the motion of the rope. The rope will be will have its anchor point right here at the exact attached place of the block, which is here. So if I turn manually with the rotation tool my rope, it will act like this, which is really logical. I will make my ball like this, so that it comes in front of the warp. And now I will move my master layer like this. So just to help you see what I will be creating, I will temporarily link the rope to the master. And now I will create a basic motion on the X position like this. And I will stop its motion when I see the ball enter in collision with the size of the composition. You'll easily understand why just later. I will recreate another keyframe here, and we'll do the same thing like here. So now let's see what happens if I don't do anything else. So let's add at least some easy ease with a much more speed like this. So if I do a RAM preview, I have this motion, which is really really basic for the moment. I don't want this keyframe to be that smooth, sorry, and I don't want this one neither. So I have now a motion that is like this, and I will return at the frame 0. I will undo the hierarchy like this. So sorry, on the warp, I don't want the warp to move on the master. Sorry, yes, I want my warp to follow my master like this. So what would be cool for now is if my master is animated like this, I want my warp to rotate like this. Okay, so like this, and when it stops its movement, the ball will then bounce onto the sides of the composition. So it will do something like this. Look, tack, 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 tack. You know what I mean, okay? So I want to make it bounce automatically when my master layer is animated on its PX position. So just to let you know, it's an important point, so don't miss it. If you want to use properly the custom effect, which is really, I remind you, the best tool you have in the list. If you want to use it, keep in mind that you have to use an effect. Okay, it's a custom effect, so you have to use an effect. You can't use the rotation from the transform menu here, the transform group here. If you try to click on the rotation and click on the custom effect, you'll have this message that will pop up, and it's totally normal. This property, the rotation, isn't an effects one. So you have to cheat a bit if you want to do the bouncing rotation of the ball. You have two possibilities. So first possibility, keep in mind that all the transform properties here can be replicated with the effect, called distort transform. So if you go to transform, and if you play with the rotation, as you can see, it will work. So it will work, but in this case, as you can see, if I play with the transform effect, it won't affect at all the hierarchy dependencies. So the ball won't follow its motion. So this technique won't work in our case. So I will delete it. So the other solution you have is to create on this rope an effect called expression controls. I want to use a rotation, so I will link my rotation to an angle control. And since all these controls are some effects, it will work with a custom effect. So let's click on the angle control. You can rename it if you want to, but I will let it as it is for now. So it is an angle control. I can now alt-click on the stopwatch of the transform rotation like this and just take the pick whip and take the angle that I've just created. Now the rotation is entirely based on this effect, and since this is an effect, I can now use my custom effect. But to do so, please remind that you have to first right-click, reveal in timeline, and you have to select your property. So now that my angle property is selected, now I can click on custom effect. It will prompt you to enter the property you want to analyze for your springy motion. It's fortunately for me again on the px, since it's a position that has been keyframed from left to right, so px is perfect for me. I will click on OK, and as you can see, if I go to the newly created rope spring constraint control, you have your pseudo effect that has been created. Be careful, since the angle control you had created by default is at 0. So since it's taking the value that you had before, your custom property value max is at 0 also. So I have a nice advice to you if you don't want this issue. So I will just undo this. So as you can see, all has been deleted. And now when I will click on the angle control and click on custom effect, before clicking on the custom effect, I will hold down the shift key on my keyboard. If I do so, let's see what happened when I click on it with the angle selected. So shift, click on it, and now it prompts you to enter a custom name for your property and to enter a maximum value automatically. So you had 0, so you can now add, if you want to, let's say 180 degrees, since it's a rotation like this. And my custom control example has to be replaced by your arm, so I can, for instance, rename it bounce. Okay, this is pretty cool. So bounce 180, click OK, and now it will prompt you to analyze the property you want to make the SpringyFX to take account. So like before, it's on the position horizontally, so px is perfect for me. Okay, so you have done 2 steps, but now if I play my animation, it won't do anything until you go to the spring constraint control. And why it doesn't work? Just because you have created a springy custom effect on the rope, and the rope, if you type U on your keyboard, hasn't any keyframed on it. So this isn't the rope that you want to inherit the motion from, but you want to inherit the motion from the master layer. So click on the spring constraint control, go at the top here, and change the inherit motion from not the rope, but the master layer. And now, if I make a preview, you have this, which is pretty cool. As you can see, it doesn't behave exactly like you would want normally. As I said, I want when my blue solid moves that my direction is whether like this. So keep in mind that a custom effect here in the spring constraint control that is now called bounce, this is my custom name, max. I have put it just before 180 degrees, so this is the maximum amplitude. So I can, since this isn't the right direction, I can just invert. So now I have something like this. So perfect. It will be really interesting if you have just, let's say, a character or a car that is moving and you have something attached by a wire to it, and automatically it will swing like you would have in the reality. So it's already blazingly cool, but what I wanted initially is to make it bounce on the sides of my composition. So to do it, all I have to do is to click on absolute. If I click on this, as you can see, I have now something like this. Pretty cool. As you can see, the ball will never go further than the side. So it's entirely dependent of the motion on the PX on the master layer, so keep that in mind. But it works really well on this part of my animation. Pretty cool. But be careful, since I've told you before that the bounce effect will make your effect constantly keep its same direction. So to avoid this effect to be in the wrong direction when the blue solid restart to animate, which is just like this here in the timeline, I will just go to the spring constraint control, keyframe the invert checkbox here. So I will create a keyframe. I will just go one frame later and re-click on invert. And now look at what happens. Perfect, perfect. As you can see, it would have been really complicated to achieve without this custom effect. So pretty cool, pretty nice. It opens up a lot of possibilities in terms of rigging. So I strongly advise you to familiarize with to learn. Sorry for this. To learn how to use properly this custom effect. Keep in mind that you can use it on scale too, on scale X, scale Y, and on rotation. As you can see, once you click on the custom effect, there is always a list of properties that you can choose, like PX, PY, SX, Y, and R for rotation. But what if you want to use these custom effects for 3D layers? Imagine a setup, a complex setup with an element 3D, for instance. So this is why I've created much properties available for 3D layers. So let's try to demonstrate it. So I will create a new composition. Like always, I will create a solid at the exact comp size. Right click on it, effect, I will apply the video copilot element 3D like before, like when I've shown you the parent constraint with 3D layers. So I will create a quick scene setup. Let's create a simple cube. I will leave it as it is, but I want to ensure that in wireframe you have enough subdivisions to make it deform properly. So I will go to the box model, go to the surface options, subdivision levels, and click on let's say 3, for instance. 3 are perfect for my tutorial, so I will leave it as it is. Okay, I will create a new camera like this. I will turn around my scene, and I will click on my gray solid. I will rename it element 3D. Like before, I will go to the group 1 panel. So just to show you, my cube is on the group 1. So I go to the group 1 and deploy the group utilities, subgroup, and create group. Here I will create a null object, and now I have a group 1 null object that I can move in my composition to make my cube automatically follow the null object, which is pretty cool if you want to use some parent constraint like before. But more than that, you can now use custom effects. Let's say you want to make your cube bend when you move it along its z-axis. Hope it makes sense. Okay, I want to make it bend when I do this. So to do this, you have to find the bend inside your group 1. So to do it, I will go to the element 3D layer, go to the group 1, particle look, deform, enable deform. The bend is right here. I will enable the deform. It's an effect, so you'll be able to use the custom effect, and I will try different configuration until I am satisfied with my object. So I want to on the Z position, so I will try this one and this one. Yes, this is exactly what I want. I want exactly when I move my null object like this to have this nice bending effect depending on the motion on Z position. So all I have to do is now to play with the bend angle like this. So I will right click on the bend angle, reveal in timeline. So I have now my bend angle selected. I will create, I will click on the custom deformer, but be careful, since if you do this now, let's say you want to inherit the motion from the Z position. As you can see, you will always have the PX, the PY, the SX, and the SY, and the R, sorry, which all are some 2D layers properties. But since I want on the Z axis, I have to cheat a bit. So I undo this. Okay, I have undone this. Perfect. I will choose my bend angle within timeline. So it is selected. I will type SS 2 times on my keyboard to solo my bend angle property. It's still selected, so it will work. So in order to cheat a bit and to be able to have all the 3D properties available, you can, if you want, apply the 3D option to the element 3D layer. Okay, it will display this message, but don't worry, I will just click OK. So now that my toolset has recognized this layer as the 3D layer, you can now click on the bend angle, and now look at what happens once you click on the custom effect. Okay, cool. Now that it's a 3D layer, you have the possibility to choose from px, py, and pz, which is exactly what I want to make my cube deform along this z-axis. You have the possibility to on the sx, sy, and rx, ry, rz. So in my case, I just want my pz, so I will click here. I will replace the x by z, hope it makes sense, and now I click OK. Be careful, since by default I had a value of 53 degrees. It may not be enough for your animation, and now you can deselect your 3D option. So I will now click on it, and now if I go on the spring constraint control, and I don't want to choose the element 3D itself, and because I've removed the 3D option here, the expression doesn't recognize the PZ option. So all you have to do is to analyze the motion from the group 1 null object, which is this one. This is the one that I will animate on its z-axis. So go to the spring constraint control, click on inherit motion from, and select the group 1 null object. And now, as you can see, the expression error, the expression issue has been solved. So now, if I move my, sorry, I have to reset the bend angle to 0, but because I don't want my cube to be already bended before it's animated, so I reset it to 0. The expression is again on it, so all I have to do now is to animate my group 1 null object created by element 3D on its z-axis. So to do that, I will just make this, so I will make something like this, a little more far, okay, something like this. So now you can already see what it's down. It has a down. So I will make a simple animation that could be loopable, for instance, something like this. And now all you have to do is to go to the spring constraint control and play with the custom property value. If you want to make your effect more visible, you can just play with this option. And now, as you can see, this slider is called element because it comes from the element effect. The bend angle comes from the bend angle name property, properties name here. I didn't rename it with the shift key, but you could have renamed it with a custom name. So let's see what happens with a quick preview. Okay, pretty cool. So it's really fun, really cool to play with such 3D rig. You won't have managed to do such cool animation directly in Element 3D without having created a lot of keyframes or a lot of motion, keyframe motion. So it's really nice, really cool. If I want now to make my cube stick to the ground, I can now go to the element 3D effect, go to the origin and offset, let's say the offset like this. Okay, and I think that if I put minus 0.5, I will have my cube stick on the ground, which is really cool. Okay, you could have created another cool effect with, let's say, the twist effect, like this. We do it really fast. Okay, I will redo it quickly. So I will choose the twist. I will enable the twist. I will twist it in this way, so this will be the twist on Y. I will right click and wheel in timeline. I want to use the rotation on which axis? On the Y axis, like this. So I need for the Y axis to be available to turn my element 3D in 3D, like this. Don't forget to do this. If you do not so, you won't have all the 3D properties available once you click on the button. So now I have my twist Y selected. I can click on custom effect and I will choose the rotation Y, so R, Y, okay, perfect. And now I will return to the spring constraint control. It's already inherit motion from the group null, which is perfect for me. I will increase the value of custom property value max, which is the twist Y max here. So all you have to do is to now animate the Y rotation here. So if I do this like this, okay, let's make some basic keyframes. Let's say 180 degrees. As you can see now, it does this cool motion. So you have a strange appearance of the cube, which is deformed. This is just because you have left the 3D options. I remind you that Element 3D doesn't work with 3D option checked. So I will uncheck this now, and now let's preview this. Okay, really, really, really cool. So imagine the possibilities behind such a cool tool. So moreover, if you already know some advanced deformers, distort effect, like effects distort let's say liquefy effect, for instance, or the mesh warp, or CC split, or some other cool guys that are here in the distort menu, you could achieve really interesting custom springy effects depending of whichever keyframe property you want: position, scale, rotation, on any axis of your choice. So keep in mind too that as a last reminder, you can still use any of these guys with other existing scripts, like Dwick for the rigging. Let's say you want to add a custom effect depending of a controller that will make your muscle bulge or a springy jiggle depending of the motion of your controllers. Or you can do the same kind of effect with let's say joystick and sliders. For instance, you could use the CC smear to create cool antennas on your character's head that automatically springy bend depending of the motion you keyframe on your joysticks, for instance. Or you can use the parent constraint with I've shown you already rubber rolls, for instance, and so on and so on. So I really think it's really, really powerful, complete, and neat toolset for After Effects that I'm pretty sure you love to play with. I really hope that you'll have as much fun as I had to develop it. So I'm really excited to see what you could achieve with all this, and feel free to comment on the webpage on aescripts.com and to post and to share your motion pieces with springy deformers and springy constraints create with my toolset. So that's it. Thank you again for your attention. Congrats to have heard me about 4 hours for now. So sorry for the duration again, and really have fun now. So let's see you later, and bye.